Okay, well, why don't we get started and
Yeah,
we'll
let's get
introduce
started.
ourselves. Carly, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Carley Nuzzo. I am an ESM counselor based in Orange County, but I have students all over. And this year, we're really excited. We are excited to talk to you about the waitlist because of how popular it is this year and how common it is. And then this is my colleague.
I'm Ted Murguia. Great to meet everybody. Thank you for joining us. Carly and I are the Orange County contingent of ESM. I'm also college counselor down here. I've been doing this for 5 or 6 years now. So, and I can tell you, I am not surprised, like Carly said, that we have a good crowd for this, because we were just sharing before this started that this is the most wait lists we've ever gotten for our students by a lot.
Yeah.
So a lot to talk about. So
Yeah.
Carly, why don't you start off? Tell us about why the late wait lists even exist and what the schools are trying to do with them.
Hey, Ted, are we sharing the
Oh, right, the presentation. I forgot about that.
1 second, everyone.
Details coming up, or you can start talking while I bring it up.
Yeah, we can start talking about it. So the wait list, basically a college wait list is just a list of applicants that would have been admitted if there were more spots. And they are a list of students that the school may or may not offer admission to. And so the total number of these of waitlisted students varies each year, as does the number of students let in from the wait list each year. And so we'll go into that a little bit more. But the first thing to know is that you're offered a spot on the wait list. So you have the option of accepting or declining the wait list, your wait list spot. And here we go. Here's our slides.
Well, and importantly is to remember that wait lists are the colleges are businesses.
Right.
And ultimately they're doing their revenue management. They need to get a certain number of students in, they're going to pay tuition. And so they use the wait list to do that, right?
Right.
I think this year is unusual. Not only COVID, but certainly the test optional thing has dramatically increased the number of applications, even though the number of high school students actually dropped from last year.
Right.
So what's happened is we've had a lot of students apply to way more schools than they would have normally. So that, of course, freaks everybody out, because now the colleges are worried about their business and said, well, there aren't any more students. We just got a lot more applications. What's going to happen? Is our yield going to be what it normally is, or is it going to be lower because they applied to so many schools?
Right. So yeah, they don't know how many of the students that they initially offer admission are going to accept. So the point of the wait list is that they will be able to fill the spots that are not accepted with students off the wait list, so that they still get all of those enrollment dollars.
Exactly. Well, and so then the one clarification to make, because I got this question a couple times, that deferred and waitlisted get intermingled sometime, and it's worth just taking a second to say that deferred is really what happened from early decisions. And deferred, they're saying they are deferring making a decision on the application until now, until the regular decision round. So you will absolutely hear from them again. A wait list, you may never hear from them again. In fact, the vast majority of students will never hear from the school again. The wait list, just they use what they want and then off they go.
Right. Yeah. So if you were deferred and you haven't heard back yet, 1, check your portals, and 2, you should be hearing by the end of this week if your school hasn't come out with those regular decisions yet. So be sure, if you haven't heard by the end of the week, to check your portals at the end of the week.
And so another question that I'm getting a lot is a wait list a polite no? And it used to be. I mean, years ago, it really was the, hey, we're sorry, but basically no, but we don't, we admire you, if you will. Or if it was a child of a donor or something, it would be that. But this year, it is absolutely not that.
Right.
it is a real possibility. It is worth taking very seriously. If there's a school where you've been waitlisted and um, it's a school you'd rather go to, it's absolutely worth the effort to try to do something about it.
Right. And this is another thing that, COVID has completely flopped on us, right? And so like we were saying, this year we've seen an even greater trend in wait lists. We're going to get into the data a little bit in the next slide, but there is a potential possibility of getting off the wait list for sure. It's just important to know what that might or might not look like, and then to keep your options open elsewhere as well.
Exactly. And so then on timelines, Carly, thanks for bringing that up, is that all decisions should be done by Friday.
Yes.
And they'll start taking people off the wait list for sure by the beginning of May. That first week of May is the one where there's the most activity. But be on the alert. If what happens is right now, all the admissions offers go out and the very excited students accept immediately and they start, getting involved with the school. And the schools are watching that this year very, very carefully. They want to know, are we getting a normal level of enthusiasm for enrolling in the school? And if mid-April, they're not getting the numbers they are expecting, they'll start looking at the wait list because they'll be worried.
Right.
So
yeah,
it might happen before May 1st, but really May is the time of a lot of activity.
Yeah. So May 1st is usually the earliest that we hear about the wait list. And then it could happen anytime after that too. So you could hear that the best case scenario, it would be that you hear May 1st. But it's possible to hear all the way through May, June, July, and even August right before school starts.
Yeah. In fact, I have one school, and I'm going to forget who it is, but one school is actually asking students to say how long they want to stay on the wait list. And they're giving 1st of June, 1st of July, I think 1st of August was also a choice. Because they want to know who's really, want to know who's really committed and who's willing to change their plans.
Right.
So, and I see a couple things in the chat. Let me look at those.
Oh, well, the second question we will for sure get to in our next couple slides. So what can a student do to improve their chances of getting in? It's going to be a big bulk of our discussion. And then the first question was, my daughter was waitlisted at a school that does not give the option to choose to remain on the wait list. It was just a notification. In that case, then she's automatically put on the wait list. But she will have to go through the steps that we're going to talk about to show her continued interest in the school.
Right. Well, so let's talk about how real is this?
Right.
So here's some numbers, and notice the headline we put. Here's some statistics that mean absolutely nothing. It's good to see this. So let me move it around so I can see. I hope you guys can all see the screen.
Yeah,
so these are the stats for the last 4 years as they reported on taking people off the from the wait list. Sorry. So UCSD, note 70, the number after the name of the university is the size of the class. So they're going to enroll 7,200 students. Last year, they put 25,000 students on the waiting list and took no one.
Which is insane.
Crazy. And the year before, they took almost 27% of the people that they put. So when you think of it, it's pretty amazing that for a class of 7,200, they put 19,000, so almost 3 times the number of people that are actually going to enroll. And then they admitted 5,000 of them. Now, what happens is, like that 19,000, they have a pretty low yield on what percentage of that 19,000 actually accept the position on the wait list. So it actually went down to 8,000. So if you accepted your position on the wait list at UCSD last year, about 2/3 of the people that accepted actually were offered admission.
Which
And a
is
very
astounding.
small number of those actually changed their minds and decided to enroll at UCSD. So that's why in some cases, these numbers seem huge. It's just that the yield as you go through the steps of it are pretty low.
Right.
And so we
But
have
the jump from one year to the next is astounding too. So 26% to 0%. It's crazy.
So this year we're hoping for numbers more like there were 2 years ago. So and if you look down that second column, they took a lot of people. Stanford took 30% of the people off the wait list.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, and they're an institution. I think the people of the 850 that were put on the wait list, something like 790 actually accepted a position
Yeah.
on the wait list. So a third of those got in, which is pretty amazing at Stanford.
Yeah. Would
So-
make it worth it to go on the wait list at Stanford.
Exactly. But certainly there are years where the number 0 or the number is so small, like Princeton 4 years ago 0, 3 years ago 1, and then 150 last year. So point is, we don't actually know what's going to happen. The numbers fluctuate wildly, and the proper course of action is absolutely stay on the wait list and do something if you want to go there. It is worth it. It can happen. Oh, the other thing I wanted to do, in fact, let me do it right now. Let me show you how you can get these data if you want. This is a very useful, not that. Let me share a different screen with you. And there's all universities publish what they call the common data set, at least most of them, not all of them. And in the common data set, you can find a lot of information about their admission statistics, including whether they do a wait list or not, how many people have got in the last year, and whether or not their list is ranked. So let me show you that. The simple search is, I'm going to pick the one I already did. This is UCSD CDS, stands for Common Data Set. And usually this is what happens. The very first result that's part of the university's website is their folder for where they keep their Common Data Set reports. So this is the most recent one at the very top. And if you look down, all the prior ones are in there as well. I look at this all the time. And I know that it's section C is the one that talks about first-year applicants. So if we click on that, it usually takes you to a PDF like this. Sometimes they pretty this up, but this is by far the most common format. So in fact, when I'm navigating through these, I even know what the shape of that page looks like. Go through it immediately. This is what it looks like. So if you'll notice here, it gives you all the stats for how many men and women applied, how many were admitted, how many actually enrolled. So this is their yield. So here at UCSD actually admitted about 40,000. And for a class, we said about 7,300. So out of 40,000, 7,300 actually enroll. All those others went somewhere else. And so those numbers are big, and that's why the wait lists are big. So any university, you can find it by doing CDS, and I'll show you down here. They talk, C2 is the section where they talk about the wait list. They'll tell you if they do it or not. Here, they forgot, they didn't answer this, but this was a yes. This is last year, how many they put on the list, how many that accepted a place. So this is what I was talking about. At 25,000 that were offered a spot on the waiting list, only just under 9,000 accepted it. And then of course, they didn't take anyone. And here's interesting, not a lot of schools rank their lists, but I picked UCSD in particular because they do. And in fact, if you check in with the admissions office, they will tell you where your position is on the wait list.
Yeah.
So
That was something I was hoping that you would bring that up. So UCSD is different from most schools in that they do rank. At most schools, and I think we'll get into this later as well, at most schools, it's not ranked, and it really just depends on who ends up accepting their position and what spots are open in the school.
Exactly. Okay, well, so then let's talk about what do we do? So the number one thing, Carly already mentioned it, accept your spot on the wait list. It is easy to forget this. There are a lot of portals. Every year I go check with students, did you actually say yes? And often I get the questions like, did I have to? I didn't read the email. I didn't read the email is typically what happened. So
yeah, check your portals, read thoroughly.
yes.
And obviously if it's a safety school or if you already got into your dream school, don't accept the spot on the wait list, right? Like this should be a school that you would want to go to over the other schools that you've been officially accepted into.
Exactly. So then what next? So the question that we always get is, can I improve my rank on the wait list? And as we said, most are not ranked.
Yeah. So usually it would be, maybe they don't fill enough engineering majors don't accept. So now they need to find someone who would be an engineering major off the wait list, or maybe they don't have enough students of a certain background that have accepted, or maybe they don't have enough students, whatever those variables may be, they're going to be picking through the wait list to fill those spots in the school rather than a specific ordered rank.
So, and each student then gets placed in several of these groups, right? Here are the low income students, if we need more of those. Here are the full tuition students. Here are the people that play the harp, because we lost our harpist this year and we're going to need a new one. And if the harpist doesn't show up, we need to go find another one in a hurry. So it's stuff like that. And there's nothing you can do about what buckets you put into, but just know that that's what they're doing. And it really is just luck. If the harpist happens to go somewhere else and your student is a harpist, that's just,
and you're in, right? Yeah. You lucked out.
Now, that said, there are absolutely things you can do to
make yourself be a better harpist candidate than the other harpist candidate.
So important in point number 2 there is there a meaningful update you can send? So I had a student 2 days ago who didn't get in somewhere, and he basically wants to, he got waitlisted and he wants to say, but I really want to go. It's like basically pretty please. And that's not a meaningful update. They know you want to go there. They know that if you accept a position on the wait list, you're still interested. But if you can tell them something, and there are 3 examples that maybe this was the toughest course load you've ever taken and your grades are all spectacular this semester, better than they've ever been, that's worth mentioning. Right. Certainly any accomplishment or awards. I had somebody get off the wait list at UCLA a couple of years ago, and her update was that she was going to be valedictorian of her class. And yeah, she wrote all about that and a couple other things that happened. She was a soccer player and they won their national championship, which is pretty cool. And she got in with that. So updating the school with significant things that have happened, right, absolutely worth it.
And I think it's important to also say, if you're writing a letter of continued interest, make sure that it's positive. This kind of seems like it should be common sense, but you don't want to strike a negative tone or come across upset that you're on the wait list. Like, be positive, positively reflect yourself. Make sure, it should reflect gratitude for being on the wait list and excitement about the possibility of attending the school rather than, why would you put me on the wait list? This stinks. Even if it does, don't come across that way.
So, and there's just on the logistics of submitting, it's not always obvious or even possible. Michigan has specifically said, don't send us anything. We don't want to see it. Like, yeah. Okay. Well, then you need to respect that. Right. A lot of the wait list and a lot of the portals where you accept your wait list, it will give you an option to submit another document or to write a short statement in support of your application. They give you some other way to do it right there. So look for that first.
Right.
That's what's most organized, will automatically get put into your file, and your admissions officer gets notified of it. So that's kind of the number one way to submit it. Number two, if that doesn't exist, is see if you can find out, or you already know, the name of the admissions officer responsible for your student. They're all assigned geographically, and that person is your student's advocate, right? That person is the one that's going to say, when somebody says, we need 3 more off the wait list, who's got candidates, then that person is going to say, me, I got this one, and we'll say something about you, and maybe even reflects what you say in this update. So you want that person to really know whatever it is that is going to strengthen your application. So try to find the name of that person. Sometimes it's super easy, like University of San Diego, you just tell them what high school you're in, and it tells you, here's your guy and here's the email.
Right.
Others, you need to go digging a little bit more.
Yeah.
Look at the communications from the school. Often the waitlist letter will say who it came from, and you can write back to that person.
Yeah, and even some schools even say, like, if you go to the website and you go on like one of their official blogs or something, it'll even say like one of the very important things to do to continue to show your interest is to reach out to these admissions officers. So it's super important to reach out to these people. As Ted said, they're your advocate. This is going to be your way into the decision room. And so it's also appropriate to check in with them periodically over this time period. So, I would reach out now that you've received your wait list. And then if you haven't heard back after May, check in again, give them any positive updates that you might have about yourself. Try to at least give them one. And then also, continue to ask, is there anything else I can do to, better my candidacy to be off the wait list.
And we're getting a question here. Is there any difference in chances to get in if you were EA at a school, then deferred and now waitlisted? This is mean. Schools do this. I have a student that happened, same thing. ED got deferred and now got waitlisted. And it's just like, wow, I sent my application in October and it's going to be May before I hear yay or nay.
Right.
So yes, it's positive that the decision was deferred and waitlisted. It does mean the student is close.
Yeah.
So don't despair, but as we saw, the waitlist numbers are tough. They're very low numbers some years. And so, but it is a sign that the college is sort of on the fence and trying to find something to do. And maybe one of these things that we're talking about on this slide could make the difference.
And I think too that, being ED will show your interest in the school. So if they're coming down to it and it's between 2 candidates and they're like, this student clearly really wants to come here, like they've been waiting since October. And clearly if they applied ED here, they really want to come here. So they have a good likelihood of accepting if we offer them a spot off the wait list. So that could be a benefit.
And that's a really good point. So back to the very starting point, this is still a business. They're still worried about the revenue. And now their yields on the wait lists are low, right? Because people are making other plans. That makes sense, right? Yield, by the way, term that they use is what percentage of the students who are offered admission actually enroll. So point number 3 actually goes to what Carley was saying. If they're sure you're going to go, that definitely strengthens your application because they're worried about it. They want to know. And in fact, so one of the things to tell that admissions officer any way that you can is, if this is your top school, if you know for sure, if they get off the wait list, you are going here, let them know that. That is probably
overemphasize.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. And that's probably the single biggest thing you can do to strengthen your application once you're on the wait list, is they're wondering. So big thing to do. And then as Carley was saying, when you get in touch with the admissions officer, ask them if there's anything they can do, you can do to strengthen your application. Not often, usually they'll tell you, no, it's fine. But sometimes they will say something, when I was advocating for you, I couldn't say anything about your leadership, or I didn't have any good examples of where you've improved your community. And any little hint like that, jump on it. Usually you don't get it, but every now and then the admissions officer, they do advocate for you. They do want to get you in. And if you give them one more reason, they can go to the committee meeting and say, wait, I got an update on somebody. How about it?
Yeah.
So that can be very, very powerful.
Communication.
Exactly. All right. Carley, do you have any other things that you do with your students and in helping them through this period?
Yeah, so I think that the one that we did touch on number 3 a lot. So is it your top school? I think too, some students, it's your dream school. It's worth waiting until, and we talked about this earlier too, when Ted was talking about the different dates, right? Of saying that you'll stay on the wait list. So, this is my dream school. I'm willing to wait until the very last minute. I don't care if my plans for next year are completely up in the air. Like if I get in, I'm going to Stanford, right? I'm willing to wait until April 15th and school starts the 16th or whatever. I mean, August. But, really talking through what that means with your family, with your counselor, this is my dream school, so I'm willing to wait and leave my plans up in the air through the summer. I won't be too stressed by that. That won't cause me too much unease. What do my other options look like? So we'll get into that in the next slide, but really like making your plans and being comfortable with what the wait list means logistically for you going into the next few months. So here's that next slide. The number one thing is that you must enroll at another school. I've actually had a lot of students this year concerned that if they enroll at another school, the school that they're waitlisted at will find out and be upset, because that would be some kind of like showing that you're not interested and not as interested in that waitlisted school. This is absolutely not true. You will only, basically you're giving yourself no options if you don't enroll at another school. So you have to enroll at another school. You have to go through the motions as if that is the school that you're going to. So at the end of this week, you will have all of your answers, or somewhat answers, being waitlist. So yes, no, waitlist. You go through all of your yeses. You pick the best yes, your favorite yes, the yes that you would most like to go to, and you enroll. You accept that offer, you put down the housing deposit, you go through all the motions, right? So you want to make sure that you need to cover your own bases, right? Because if we go back to that data slide, some years 0% of students are accepted off the wait list. So you can't put all your eggs in that bucket. You want to be going somewhere in the fall. So enroll in one of your schools, well, your favorite school, and go through the motions of doing that. So you're going to have to put down your deposits, and that's going to be non-refundable. So that's something to know too. But again, if it's your dream school, then it's worth it, right? So on the one hand, you're going to your school, you don't lose a deposit, or on the other hand, you get into your dream school and you lose the deposit. So it's a win-win.
Deposits are generally a few $100s.
Yeah, it's
not
not a huge
$100.
deal.
So given the cost of college education, that's relatively, it's a good outcome.
Right.
And I'd like to emphasize the notion, a lot of students have this reluctance to, well, I still have hope at my wait list, so I'm not really going to work on this other school. And that's a mistake. It really is. We need to get in. It's good for the students to get into the mindset of, I am going to this school, and to really engage in it. One thing to do to help that out is April is recruiting month for all the schools, right? So all the decisions come out by Friday, and the next 4 weeks, all the schools are worried about the yield. They really want their admitted students to enroll. So they have admitted student days, they have tours, and they pull out all the stops. Those visits are very fun. The kids love it. So if you ended up at, let's say you ended up with only safeties, I really recommend that you take, that as a student, you go to one of these admitted student days. Most students come out of there just loving the school, even if it was their safety. They meet a whole bunch of other people, and just the enthusiasm that gets generated around those admitted student days is it's joyful. It's very fun. And so even if nothing happens with a wait list, going to the admitted student day will generate the enthusiasm, so that it's okay and they engage. Now, you can see some of the things. Choose housing. Yeah, choose where you're going to live, and really choose it, because you're probably going to live there. Choose your classes, and most importantly, engage with other incoming students. The Facebook groups go up very quickly. Sometimes they're sponsored by the schools, but social media just takes off in the next month. And people, I have one student who met his girlfriend. He's been at college for 2 years now. He met his girlfriend on the admitted student day, and they sort of remote dated. It was COVID, so they were remote dated all summer. And then they got to school together, and 2 years later, they're still together. So that kind of
it's just fun. And again, because I mean, even the high yields off the wait list are 30%, you want to be happy about the school that you're probably most likely going to, and you want to have everything ready to go for the summer, going into that program. So, you don't want to be stuck without any of the classes that you need. You don't want to be stuck in the terrible dorm room that you don't want to be in. You want to be all ready to go and enjoy your freshman year.
Yeah. We had a question here, somebody asking why we think that we'll go back to earlier percentages of admission on the wait list. If I would restate that. And the answer is fairly straightforward, is because there are fewer students this year. So if the schools are very concerned that instead of the average student that applied to 7 to 10 schools, and they kind of understood that world of like, hey, for students that apply to 7 to 10 schools, they get into 2 or 3. We know that usually this is a percentage that we capture. There's high concern that last year was very fuzzy because everybody was confused about COVID.
Yeah, and the
test optional.
policy. Yeah, it was all new last year.
Yeah,
still. People weren't taking advantage of it like they are this year.
Exactly. This year, everybody figured it out. I have one high school counselor that was just basically telling every single student, apply to every single UC, doesn't matter, just hit them all.
Yeah.
I was kind of annoyed because but that's common because it's so easy to do.
It's super common. Yeah.
Exactly. So the issue is they're going to put a lot more people on the wait list. And the real concern for the colleges is that they're going to get a lot lower yield on the students that they are admitting, because it turns out this student applied to 15 schools and they got into 7 of them, 6 of which they like better than this one.
Yeah.
And
we
so
were saying that with the admission when we were looking at the numbers of UCSD, right? So they admit way more students than will be in the class, and they're worried that that'll be even a larger discrepancy this year.
So, and because there are just fewer students, then just the math works out that there's going to be a lot of wiggling around. There's, I guess we know with a fair amount of certainty that the yields will be lower this year off the straight admission students, and the schools are just planning on it, so they're making serious wait lists.
Yeah,
I hope that clears it out.
And I think that unknown factor came out a lot too when we were looking at the EDEA figures from this year. So if you want to watch that, our founder Billy did a webinar which we have a recording to a few months ago when all of the EDEA numbers came out. And the deferral rates were much higher this year. And so that also just reflects the uncertainty. So I'm actually really interested to see what the data shows about the number of students that were deferred that ended up being accepted, and what that could mean for what colleges are thinking right now too.
Yeah. And we have another question here. Can you see the chat
I
that's
can,
up on the
yeah.
screen? Okay. So there's another question. Do schools publish the target number of students for a class? Ish. I mean, you can certainly look at the common data set and see how many actually enroll every year. And it generally grows a little bit each year, or stay stagnant. The UCs, for example, have grown a little bit over the last 2 years. And but this year was the tough year, and the governor had to give Berkeley and UCLA essentially special funding so they could accept 600 students more. And that's a huge jump. But generally, they stay pretty consistent for the number of students that enroll. And as you look at the common data sets, they'll vary, generally grow like by 50 or maybe by 100 every year. So
but it's pretty, you could even see that on most school websites have like class sizes. So like Ted was saying, it can vary a little bit. Generally, it's a growing trend, but maybe if they ended up taking more students last year, it might go down a little bit, but it's usually somewhat close.
And demographically, we're going down in number of students. At some point, that's going to stop, right? COVID has unfortunately hurt a lot of universities. So we're also getting Mills College, for example, in Oakland is closing, which is sad. So it's, as a trend continues, it will happen. But this year, expect that more or less stable with last year. Okay, and we have another question. If your student is on the wait list, is it okay to use the appeal form to submit additional information? This is for San Diego State. Generally, no. Appeals are, it's very much like the legal system in that you don't appeal and say, well, wait, I want to be heard over again just because I want to. You appeal because there's something significant in the process that needs to be reviewed, that given new information, we could. So we don't have any visibility to the process, so we can't tell whether it was read once or twice. And we say, wait, it should have been read 7 times, so read me again. But we do, we can appeal if there's some significant part of a piece of information that the school didn't have. Like, for example, hey, I'm valedictorian of my class, and I won an award for best sportsman of the year at my school, and I've done some fabulous community project. That all things that happened, especially for EA and ED students, all that hadn't happened in October, and it's new, and it's new information that really builds out a piece. So, and they have a very clear, all colleges have a very clear process to go through an appeal. So if you just submit more information on a wait list through the appeal process, they're going to look at it, well, we haven't actually decided on this yet. There's nothing to review.
Well, and then she just asked a follow-up question, then how to submit. They don't offer an option to add new info. Honestly, at a school like SDSU, it's probably like Michigan. In general, SDSU doesn't take a lot of information to begin with anyways. There's no essays, like it's very minimal to begin with, and they get so many applications that honestly, there probably just isn't that option at SDSU.
SDSU is particularly good at hiding who their counselors are. And USD gets,
they don't want you to bug them.
And USD gets very annoyed because often if you search for UC San Diego admissions counselors, one of the first results, certainly on that first page, is the University of San Diego counselors, because that page is really easy to find. And the San Diego State or the UCSD are not. In fact, they won't even show you.
So that's Wendy made that comment as well. So there is for state schools, you don't submit additional information. basically you just wait it out, as hard as that is. So there aren't really options for students to increase their chances
Well,
there.
and it's not necessarily true of all state schools. Certainly UCLA.
Oh yeah, so I mean Cal State, like the Cal State.
Cal State system.
Sorry,
Okay, yeah,
sorry.
Cal
Yeah,
State system
not
is tougher.
so big sorry. Yes, so California State universities. UC is for sure, yes. And other public universities, if that's what we're referring to as state schools too.
Yeah, but it's worth looking at every single school and try it. In general, for example, UCLA says they say something about send us very significant updates or something, but you know, who are
Who judges that?
right? Who judges that? What is a meaningful update?
Send something.
So if you have something interesting to say so. Absolutely worth it. You know, there's zero to lose there. So it's worth the effort. Okay. Let's see. Any we're running out of time. Surprising.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Well,
Okay.
our emails are here. If any of you that are on right now have any other questions, or if anyone watching the recording has any questions, please feel free to reach out. We know that this can be really confusing and really frustrating, and it's a relatively new side of this process. So we're happy to help in any way.
All right.
And thank you.
For the thank yous. That's very
yeah, that's very nice.
All right. If you have any friends, this recording will be available, and
it should be sent to you if you're registered.
Yeah. Well, and I was thinking for other friends that thought this might be useful, just write to us. You will get it. Feel free to forward it, and feel free to forward our email addresses as well.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good day. Happy Wednesday.